Good day, welcome. This is your Daily Med with Lady V. Today we want to take a close look at the faith of Gideon. And this story is found in Judges chapter 6, verse 1 through 8, all the way to chapter 8, verse 32. This is the story of Gideon, who is mentioned in the great Hall of Fame with David and Barak and Samson and Jephthah. See, Gideon had a call from God to service. As we will see in the next cycle of Israel's life, they were oppressed by the Midianites. These were marauding Bedouin bands who conducted raids on Israel's crops, stripping the land like locusts and stealing the livestock. Israel backsliding, turning to idol, resulted in poverty, in slavery, and fear for 7 years. We see sin always bring sorrow, and we will see that faith is always rewarded. So here Israel is in fear. Those whom Israel had once conquered have now become our masters. They are enslaved. When we turn from the Lord as Christians, our old habits enslave us. They were impoverished. All these things begin to happen to them. Israel cried out to the Lord for help. So God sent them a prophet. He wanted to speak to his people. God says, listen, I'm reminding you people of all your idolatry. The things that you have done, you have forsaken me after all that I have done for you. But there was this man Gideon who was secretly threshing some wheat. He was doing it in a wine press. A wine press is for pressing grapes so that they could have wine. But he found a way to do it so as to find food. But while he was doing this, he was hiding from the Midianites. To his surprise, an angel appeared to him and told him, you are a mighty man of valor, and that God would use him to deliver Israel from the Midianites. Protesting that he was the least in his entire family. In Judges chapter 6 and verse 15, Gideon asked for a sign of assurance of his call, to say, is God really calling me? Is it God who really wants me to do this? So the Lord by the messenger told Gideon, tear down the pagan fertility altars. Yes, these altars belong to his own father. And he says, then you go and build me an altar, a place for the Lord, a place to worship. Here his faith in God was tested. Because yes, this was a hard thing to do. The penalty for doing this is execution. So he knew, listen, I have to have faith in God and obey God. So it did not matter that what he was doing by tearing down those altars could have cost him his life. At this time, the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of the east, they gathered themselves together to make war on Israel. As they crossed the Jordan and as they encamped in the valley of Jezreel. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he assembled an army. He was doing this before he went into battle. Yes, he trusted God, but he wanted, or he desired, a pledge from God. He wanted assurance. So God assured him of victory. In order that victory against the Midianites will be clearly seen as divine, that as the doing of the Lord, God had to reduce Gideon's army. He had 32,000 men. God says, Gideon, I've got to cut this army so that the people will not believe that it was done because you have a great army of 32,000. So 22,000 were sent back home. Only 10,000 was left. So the faint-hearted and the fearful was sent home. Then he had 10,000 left. Then the Lord gave him another assignment and reduced the army to only 300. The thought of losing or sending so much men back home is that God was weeding out those who were just too comfortable, or those who was just too fearful. And so he was left with 300. So he took his 300 men. You have to realize that he was greatly outnumbered now, as we will get to that. And he went to the camp of the Midianites by night because God had instructed him to do so. So when he went to their camp, there he heard a Midianite telling his friend of a dream he had, in which a loaf of barley bread rolled over a Midianite tent, crushing it. So the friend understood the dream as meaning that the Israelites would defeat the Midianites. The thought of Gideon's army may have caused him to fear. The thought of his army being reduced may have caused him to wonder. But God was asking him to face an army of 135,000 strong with only 300 men. Judges 8 and verse 10. He was outnumbered 450 to 1. But the word from the mouth of his enemy strengthened his faith. In response, he worshipped God, then went to war. And he went to war with blazing torches, blowing trumpets. So Gideon armed his men with trumpets and jars containing torches. In the middle of the night, he gave the signal. They all broke their jars, exposing the flaming torches, and blew the trumpets. So the startling combination of the sight and the sound caused mass confusion among the Midianites. They begin to turn their sword on each other. Miraculously, victory was given because God had told him that I have delivered the host of the Midianites into your hand. He also told them, listen, when you go to the camp, you will hear what they say, and you will be strengthened with boldness. So when we look at what God did for the Israelites, we knew it was not because of an army of 32,000 men, but it was because of the divine help of God they had the victory. Just looking at Judges chapter 7 for a few verses, reading from verse 12. It says that the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along in the valley like grasshoppers for multitude, and their camels were without number, as the sand of the seaside for multitude. And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow, and said, behold, I dream a dreamed, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of Midian, and came into a tent, and smote it, and it fell, and overturned it, and the tent lay along. And his fellow answered and said, this is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel, for into his hands hath God delivered Midian and all the host. And it came to pass, when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped and returned into the host of Israel, and said, arise, for the Lord hath delivered into your hand the host of the Midianites. So we see that Gideon had faith, and this is why he is numbered in the great hall of faith, because he trusted God. He said that he was small. He said that he was not a man of war. He said that he couldn't fight. But when the time came, God used him to bring victory to his people, Israel. We can continue to trust God, as we see these Old Testament saints trusted God, believed that what he say is true. He promised Gideon that he would deliver the Midianites into his hands, and most certainly he did. Hebrew 11:32, and what shall I say? For the time would fail to tell of Gideon and Barak and of Samson and of Jephthah and of David also, and Samuel and of the prophets. So we see his name right there in the great hall of faith, being numbered with those who trusted God, in those who believed what God says, and it really happened. It came to pass. Today we too can have faith in God and trust him that what he says will come to pass. Thanks for your continued support. Please like, please subscribe, please share, and don't forget to visit my YouTube channel, Daily Med with Lady V.